He was out of the leadership, then in the race to reclaim his old job. Now Patrick Brown is reported to be out for good after startling revelations of a police investigation into a riding nomination battle where he reportedly ordered the fix to be in. The official reason, according to media sources, will be threats to himself and his family and his mother's poor health. However, let's keep in mind this development did break on the same day as the Toronto Star story, had Brown instructing party officials to ensure a specific candidate won a contested PC nomination. That nomination is under police investigation, and it's also the same day as Ontario's Integrity Commissioner opened an investigation into Patrick Brown's behavior. We hear the official, it's time for our political strategy puzzle solvers to discuss this and more. Our regular Monday strategist panel has been decimated by illness or holidays. So let's bring in some outstanding replacements from Toronto. Amanda Galbraith of Navigator and Tom Parkin of Post Media. Here in the studio, Greg Weston of Earnscliffe Strategy Group and Richard Mahoney of Macmillan Law. Welcome to the show, everybody. Another unexpected development. Greg, I guess I'm going to go to you first. I'm trying to make sense of this. How does the PC party bounce back from this?
Well, I think the short answer is they bounce back a lot more easily than they would have bounced back 2 months from now if Patrick Brown had won and then they go directly into an election campaign. We've got all these investigations taking place. What if one of those would force him to resign somewhere down the road? So for the PC party, at least they have some certainty right now. They only have 2 weeks left until they pick a new leader. I think by last count, it's about 100 days until the whole province goes to the polls.
Right.
That's not very much. So they've got to sort of claw their way out of the rubble at the moment, pull themselves back together, have a leadership race, and then straight into an election campaign. It's not going to be easy.
I know, Richard, if you were watching all these allegations pile up today, certainly you had the concern about this investigation the Star found, as well as the Integrity Commissioner. I don't know if trotting out the family issues is not almost a cliche when it comes to getting out under this sort of embattled thing, but did you have any choice?
Not really. I mean, I guess the frightening thing, as Greg suggests, is what if Brown had won the leadership? He first of all, he won it recently. In a fairly surprising and commanding fashion. Secondly, the wider problem for them is Brown had actually put together the platform that could probably beat the Ontario Liberals, a reasonably progressive, moderate centrist. Remember, they've lost the last couple of campaigns because their leaders campaigned way too far on the right for the bulk of Ontario voters. Tim Hudak's 100,000 jobs being the example, right? So they carefully, learning that lesson, had put together a moderate, centrist, some would say even thoughtful document. That document now lies in tatters in the sense that all the other candidates running for Brown's job have come out against it, against the carbon tax, which essentially funded the whole thing. So, I mean, I don't think Brown had a choice. Now, and I think Greg's right to say that the Conservatives are probably better off without him. On the other hand, what do they do now? I mean, they've got, as Greg says, less than 100 days left. And they've got to put Humpty Dumpty back together. It looks like a more right-wing Conservative party than the one that Brown was going to lead into the campaign. So what do we got?
I don't know. We have a couple of guests in Toronto. I guess we've lost contact with them. So I'm sticking with you two for the time being.
That sounds like trouble, actually.
It is trouble. Yeah. No good's going to come of this. No. All right. Let me bring in someone that knows what she's talking about. Not that you guys don't. No. Amanda, I hear you're with us again. I'd like to get your reaction to this whole Patrick Brown thing. Can the Conservative Party, as Richard so eloquently describes them, is it Humpty Dumpty, and can they put them back together again?
I think that's a great question. I mean, the party itself obviously is going up in memberships. Signs for Lancets are going up. But I think, everyone's sort of watching this unfold with a bit of horror and what happens next. So obviously news today that Patrick Brown will be stepping down, or it will be stepping down imminently, and we are waiting for that. Apparently that's going to happen this evening. And who knows what happens next? Every day on this thing, it's a whole new story.
Yeah, we have it confirmed multiple now, Amanda, so I think we can assume this is a done deal. He's notified the chief electoral officer and other things. So I'd like to get your reaction. If the party is better off without him for the second time, does he have any clout to merge his resources and endorse one of the other candidates and help them along, or is he too toxic now?
I think that I'll be honest, I think the party is better without him in the race. I felt that, there were some concerns around the original story. So he obviously mounted quite an aggressive campaign to sort of rebut some of those allegations. I think they did so reasonably effectively, but I think his presence in the race has really sucked the oxygen out of the discussion with all the other contenders. And I think any campaign would agree that this isn't about ideas anymore. It's sort of the daily watch on what's going to happen and what rumors and gossip are going on. So I think that's a good thing for the party. I think they need to unify under someone new. Who that is will remain to be seen. As far as his clout, though, elections, and especially leadership elections, are all about organization. Patrick Brown was one of the people that helped build up the PC party. So how his resources, his organizers in different regions of this province, they will have an effect on this leadership race. So I think people will absolutely be jockeying for that in the coming days.
And I'm going to stick with you. Just one more question,
Sure.
though, Amanda. I mean, I'm curious, does any other candidate, there's 4 left in the race, does any other candidate benefit disproportionately positively from Patrick Brown, and is anyone hurt by his departure?
I mean, I think it'll be interesting to watch. There's been some discussion that some of the Patrick's organizers would be going both to Christine Elliott or to Caroline Mulroney, and I will say I'm a supporter of Caroline Mulroney, just for full disclosure there. So I think those could possibly be helpful, but really this race is so crazy. It's kind of anything can happen in every 24-hour cycle. So I know right now in backrooms, I'm sure in every single campaign, people are calling around, seeing what's happening, where are people going. For example, Patrick had a Northern coalition that was sort of in a block for him, and where did those votes go? So you'll be really seeing that shake out. I think the race could dramatically shift in the coming days, especially leading into the debate.
All right, I can say we finally got around to getting the official notice from Patrick Brown. He's given a number of reasons why he's going, including CTV allegations. I've only got one page out of it, so I don't know what the rest are. But he did have problems, he said, with his family at home, was feeling threatened. I got to bring Tom Parkins in now. Tom Parkins, all right. Tom, give us your thoughts on this rather surprising curve here being thrown at this very controversial race. What do you think this does to the contest for leader, and what does it do to the election? As Greg points out, it's 100 days away.
An electricity system, which is being privatized and getting more and more expensive. We've got a healthcare system today in Ottawa. Once again, hospitals are over capacity. They're calling it a code orange on hospitals. And it's not just in Ottawa. It was in Sudbury. It's been in Brantford and other cities in the province. So this is all a huge distraction from talking about the issues that we have to talk about as Ontarians in a pre-election period. The problem for the other two parties has been to break through this noise. And this is where Andrea Horwath has got to really work hard, because getting through this noise and beginning to talk about the issues that matter to people is a crucial part of her pre-election campaign. And so, you'll hear her, as I'm sure, Don, you saw her last week talking about the fact that the PCs can't run their political party. How can they be expected to run a province? And here she is offering not bad versus worse, but something new, something more hopeful, and focusing on the issues.
I still got to wonder, Richard, whether this race is now handing victory to Kathleen Wynne, or should she still be worried, because those other 4 in there are not necessarily slouches. They might be able to catch the public's imagination.
Listen, I think any election campaign this far in advance, no one should take it for granted, and I know she doesn't take it for granted. It'll be tough going. Listen, I think, as I said before, I think that Brown had the right idea in terms of the platform he put together. It's the kind of thing that would appeal to Ontarians. He did not take Kathleen Wynne on the minimum wage law, which is very popular. He did not take Kathleen on the pharmacare for those under 25, which is popular, and so on and so forth. I think the real question for Kathleen Wynne, and what might give her an advantage, if the party is moving to the right as it appears to be in the leadership, again, they'd want to do that to appeal to the right-wing base in order to win. Brown did that himself to get elected. Then I think that gives her a great opening, because she'll say to Ontarians, what kind of a province do you want here? Do you support these issues, or do you support somebody who's going to turn us back?
All right. I want to move on, because there's other issues I wanted to get to today. Certainly the aftershocks from Justin Trudeau's trip to India, where a convicted attempted murderer almost crashed a reception there, caused all kinds of problems. And that was the hullabaloo in the House of Commons today. Justin Trudeau was away. And here's a clip of what happened in his absence.
Is it the Prime Prime Minister's belief that the government of India conspired and manipulated events in order to ensure the attendance of Jasbel Atwal, a convicted terrorist, at a reception in India last week with the Prime Minister?
As the honourable member knows, I cannot discuss security details on the floor of the House, but I can tell her with absolute assurance that all Canadians can be assured that our police and our security agencies have done their job in relation to this visit, and they have done it very well.
Greg, I'm trying to get a handle on what this does to the Trudeau brand. I mean, we laughed at Joe Clark when he lost his luggage. We laughed at Jean Chrétien when he sort of got lost in Jerusalem. Is this Trudeau's moment where the rock star gets a bit of a shooting star situation, or are we all completely exaggerating the impact of this on the public psyche?
Well, Don, I mean, we know that when leaders go on foreign trips, the media, we've all been there, our captive audience. It doesn't take very much to spark up a side story because typically, let's face it, on most of these foreign trips, it's all about sending back nice pictures back home. Now,
There's a lot of that from this trip.
A lot of those pictures coming back from this one. I think more than the security issue, I've heard people sort of the opposition, they're trying to torque this so that this is somehow reflects on the Prime Minister that his life was in danger. I mean, if we think that through, it's just not logical.
Right.
Staff, maybe, other people, our High Commission there who invited this guy to dinner. All of that stuff obviously is going to be the subject of some kind of investigation because you can't allow that thing to happen in this day and age. That said, I think the other photo ops that are taking place on this, he's on the verge of that great political adage that when they're yelling at you, you're in trouble. When they're laughing at you, you're dead. I think at some point, people are going to stop taking Justin Trudeau seriously if they keep seeing what appear to be somewhat comedic depictions of him. So,
all right, Amanda and then Tom, what's this do to Trudeau?
I think it's damaging to Brand Trudeau, and I think they've been sort of on this tipping point for a little while, which is some of the stuff is just a bit too cute by half. I mean, even after, it was outfit after outfit after outfit, and the reason I always gauge this, and I call home and I ask my mom or my sister, like, what did you think of this? And even my sister was like, could he wear a suit today? So I think it's kind of trickling down to real Canadians. But even after all this came out, they had a photo of his son sort of laying on the ground, looking up in the air, kind of rolling his eyes with Modi in the shot. And I just kind of felt like, you need to step back and sort of step away from your hype and realize that sometimes you can tone it down a little bit. And I really do feel like this is one of those instances where this government went a bit too far. They believed a little bit too much in their own celebrity. And, they're feeling the sting of it. And we're kind of a laughingstock all over the world. And Canadians don't like that. But the budget tomorrow is a big opportunity for them to reset. And I think that's what we're going to see.
Okay, Tom, is a week from now, is this a laugh that we've all forgotten we had, or is this something that we'll say, that Justin Trudeau and all those costumes and stuff, that really bothered me. I don't know if it would.
Yeah, there's the superficial, I think, that will last a few days, and then there's a deeper question here, I think, Don. There was ostensibly a trade agenda going on here, but I think the real political agenda was about domestic politics, and frankly, it was about trying to undercut Jagmeet Singh with the Indo-Canadian vote and send home great pictures from India to Indo-Canadians and have those pictures for the 2019 election. But the thing is, Don, we may think that Canada is complex with two official languages and First Nations and provinces and territories and multiculturalism and all these different and competing agendas. Well, India is way more complex, way, way bigger. And I don't think that anybody in the Prime Minister's office had a clue about how deep and how problematic the politics of India is. If you want to play domestic politics, domestic Indo-Canadian politics in India, you better know what you're talking about. And it was clear to me that he didn't, and he put his feet in places where they ought not to have gone. So, my advice for Mr. Trudeau is, if you're just going to go over there and do trade, do trade. Don't try and make a political agenda to sideswipe your opponents on a subject about which you know very little.
All right, I got to get your thought, Rich. I mean, he did have a strong finish in the sense that he met with the Prime Minister and it looked like a lovey-dovey relationship.
Yeah.
But you have to acknowledge there was certainly some optical issues on the way to that meeting.
Yeah, and I think actually some of our other, Greg and others have mentioned this. I think there's probably a little bit of a sense, not just in the media, but amongst other observers, that, as Amanda suggested, that the Prime Minister was pretty smooth and he looks great and he's got a great looking family. There's a little bit of lack, sort of maybe a lack of patience for it being done too well. The other thing is, we don't have a lot of, we're not like
He's too perfect? Is that what you're saying?
He's too smooth.
Yeah.
Amanda said too cute by half. We don't have the issues that Mr. Trump and others have, or Patrick Brown has.
Right.
So we got to find some fault with him, and I think he's got to be careful in order to do it. The point that Tom closed on is the one that I think is the important one. India is soon to be the largest country in the world. It's a huge economy. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Indo-Canadians here. This is an important partner and trading partner for us.
Right.
So while Sikh politics is big in news over there, the trade deal and the importance of the Indian relationship is why we need him not only to go this time, but need him to go back. That's important for jobs in Canada.
Fair enough. Good conversation. We're out of time. Thank you all for stepping in.